Welcome everybody to the Digital and Technology Masterclass. I'm Brian Archer, I'm your chair for this morning, and my role is Director of the Economy for the Leeds City Region Enterprise Partnership. And I would like to thank everybody for joining us, and also if you could note that the session will be recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to share it with your partners and your colleagues. The Leeds City region is part of the Northern Powerhouse, home to over 1 million businesses with an economy worth 339 billion. The North's a great place to live, work and visit, and critically, it's a fantastic environment for businesses to invest. And both India and the Northern Powerhouse have got particular strengths in the digital and technology sector. So there's some great opportunities for collaboration. And we're totally committed to developing much stronger links with India to drive forward global trade and levels of inward investment. We've got some fantastic speakers today from India and across the Northern Powerhouse. And then at 10 o'clock, you'll be split into 3 groups for the breakout sessions, where you'll have an opportunity to network and to ask questions. So I'd now like to, without further ado, introduce some of our key partners to say a few words. First up, I'd like to invite Jeremy Pilmore-Bedford, who's the Deputy High Commissioner of Bangalore, to say a few words about the UK-India relationship. Jeremy.
Good morning to everybody in England, and good afternoon to everybody in India. I'm Jeremy Pilmore-Bedford. I'm the British Deputy High Commissioner here in Bangalore, covering Karnataka and Kerala, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all today to the Digital and Tech Masterclass session of the Northern Asian Power Mission to India. As I'm based here in Bangalore, I will briefly, which is India's tech capital, I'll briefly say a few words about this city before highlighting some of the great opportunities in the north of England and the NPH region. Now, Bangalore is not just India's tech capital, it's actually one of the top 4 global centres for tech. A recent report by Deal Room for London and Partners showed that Bangalore was the world's top hub for VC investment in tech in 2020. The city has more startups than any other in India, 3,805 created since 2015. And over the same period, Bangalore startups raised more than $20 billion worth of capital, more than the next 2 biggest cities in India combined. The city is home to well-established tech majors such as Wipro and Infosys, but is also home to 24 unicorns. And there are more than 2 million people employed in tech in the city, and over 100,000 people with PhDs. Not surprisingly, the city has strong universities such as IIM, IISc and IITB, as well as over 100 engineering colleges which produce more than 90,000 engineering graduates per year. Bangalore and the rest of Karnataka house over 400 R&D centres and 85 chip design houses. The city is also a centre for aerospace and space, as well as biotechnology. In fact, 60% of the biotechnology companies in India have a base in Bangalore. And it's also India's most millennial-friendly city, and 37% of the population is between 20 and 35. As a result of all this, it will be no surprise to you that the World Economic Forum has identified Bangalore as the world's fastest growing major city over the next 15 years, with a predicted annual GDP growth of 8.5%. I think that Bangalore's areas of excellence and opportunity match well with those of the Northern Powerhouse region of England, which encompasses 6 of the UK's 10 largest cities, is home to over 15 million people and 1 million businesses, and has an economy of almost £340 billion. My last visit to the UK just before the COVID crisis in early March of last year took me to Manchester, which is home to the UK's second biggest digital cluster after London, and is Europe's fastest growing major tech cluster, with investment growing from 48 million in 2018 to 181 million in 2019. It's also home to the UK's Centre for Health Informatics, as well as close to Media City and Salford. Manchester is also the birthplace of Baby, the world's first stored program computer. The NPH region also possesses a number of nationally and internationally significant assets, and events such as one of the UK's 3 standalone internet exchanges, which is in Leeds, the Hartree Centre for High Performance Computing at Derrisbury, and is home to the world's 30th most powerful computer. And of course, clusters of tech expertise elsewhere, including Digital City in Middlesbrough, the Baltic Triangle Gaming Hub in Liverpool, the Yorkshire and North East Tees Valley Digital Catapults, to name just a few. The NPH region is home to many of Britain's top universities of global significance, including Manchester, Durham, Sheffield and Leeds. These, together with the region's dynamic businesses, underpin world-class capabilities in high-performance computing, data management and analytics, artificial intelligence, cognitive computing and machine learning, simulation modelling and visualisation, and of course the Internet of Things. Given this, as well as the quality of life, it is no surprise that many Indian companies, including Tech Mahindra, Mastech Limited, Emphasis, Hero Cycles, Dr. Reddy's Labs, Prime Focus, etc., have chosen the north of England as a place to do business and to grow. The north of England has a heritage of world-class manufacturing and an adept R&D ecosystem, world-class science parks, industry centres of excellence, 29 universities making it easy to access talent, and offers a great connectivity with 7 international gateway airports flying to 254 direct destinations in normal times. It also has a low cost of setting up business and affordable living. In some of the northern powerhouse cities, there is also funding available to inward investors, for example, those offered by the Leeds Digital Inward Investment Fund. This makes funding available to digital, creative or technology businesses that are considering growing or relocating opportunities in Leeds. And the international inward investors could be eligible for a time-limited grant contribution of over £50,000. The inward investment teams at the Department for International Trade can discuss all of your requirements that can help you access the information, advice and contact your company needs for both FDI and trade. And I would seriously underline the huge opportunities here in the Northern Powerhouse region. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Jeremy. Excellent. What a fantastic opportunity. It's certainly in the Northern Powerhouse. The amount of talent in the region is phenomenal, and the opportunities for collaboration across boundaries are absolutely terrific. So thank you for that. Excellent. Next up, we've got Sharon Matthew, the Chief Executive and Founder of Tech North, which is the largest part of the largest northern AI community, Tech North. And Sherin's an established thought leader within AI and data. So Sherin, without further ado, over to you.
Thank you, Brian. And good morning, everyone. And afternoon, those who are in India. Namaste to everyone. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to share something that we have passionately done for over the last 3 years. We had an amazing community journey. And it was quite fascinating to sort of start this journey in the North. I used to work for IBM Global Business Services as an AI lead, and living in the North, working in London and across Europe, I saw there was this energy, passion, and community that is waiting to adopt new technology. And over the last decade, in the UK itself, we've seen 150% growth in AI sector, which is quite fascinating. So we thought, how about we bring this global awareness and focus in areas that really needs adoption and empowerment by sharing strategies, tricks of the trade, and also our mission has been to sort of disrupt the AI disruption, to help SMEs and individuals who are on their journey, but they don't know how to get started. By starting this community, basically by running a lot of events and bringing global experts. So we bring global experts all the way from Silicon Valley to Europe and from India. And we share knowledge. And by sharing knowledge, we are minimizing waste, we're reducing failure, and we're empowering SMEs to sort of build new innovation, which is beneficial and sustainable and secure as well. We're also very proud that we have done over 100+ AI sessions over the last 3 years. And we also run 2 large AI summits over last 2 years. Interesting part is the first summit was hosted in Leeds, and we had 400 attendees. The next summit was digital, thanks to COVID, and we had 1,500 attendees across the world. So it really shows the adoption and the rate of growth and demand as well for the new technologies such as AI. We recently are about to launch a new platform called Innovation Exchange. Again, this is an extension, a global extension of what we are doing from the North, running live expert sessions from our studio. It's not like a Zoom call. It's more like you're watching a news or something. At the same time, you're learning new capabilities from thought leaders across the world. So we're trying to pump in as much as knowledge as possible. Also, we are really passionate about the biggest challenge that we face in AI today, which is ethics. And we are leading that quite boldly. And when I say boldly, because we are on the cusp of creating a new human rights, which probably solves most of the ethical issues that we're facing with technology. This human right is called Human Rights to Intelligence, and our initiative is called Public Intelligence. So as you can see, it's an open toolkit, accessible to all, so that ethics can be embedded in the design framework, and making ethics and AI really accessible and sustainable and easy, so that it's not an excuse. It's a technology that is like a rocket science. We're trying to make AI really simple and help SMEs and businesses adopt this in a very seamless fashion. So that's me kind of summarizing that one slide. There's a lot more details after that, but we can, I think, clearly skip that.
Excellent, Sherin. Thank you. Obviously, looking forward to hearing more about AI and simplification, translating that into something that businesses can understand. Excellent.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Julian Wells, who's the Director of Fintech North and WHITECAP Consulting. WHITECAP Consulting is a leading regional strategy consultancy with operations across the Northern Powerhouse. Julian.
Thank you very much, Brian, for the introduction. Namaste. Hello, everybody. My name's Julian Wells, as Brian said. I represent two organisations, WHITECAP Consulting, which helps organisations with strategy and has 3 offices in the north of England. But today I'm here talking about Fintech North, and I'd like to explain a little bit about that to you. I was really struck by some of the statistics in Jeremy's introduction there. 24 unicorns in Bangalore is absolutely staggering. That's a huge number. Very, very impressive indeed. I'd like to explain a bit about Fintech North. So Fintech North is an organisation that was created 5 years ago. It's a community of people across the Northern Powerhouse who have an interest in fintech. It spans all of the major cities in the north, including Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle. And the way that we run Fintech North is it's events driven. So the community in normal times would come together through a series of seminars and conferences, and through those events we give a platform to regional, national and international speakers to share stories and insights around fintech developments. And the events are attended by a really broad range of people with an interest in fintech, and that can include major financial institutions, large tech companies, fintech entrepreneurs, investors, academics, the public sector, anybody really who has an interest in this space. We've had a lot of engagement with the international community over the last 5 years. As this graphic shows, we've had speakers from 22 different countries so far. We were very glad to have Jeremy speak about 2 or 3 years ago when he was in a previous role, and we've worked with the Department for International Trade on a number of fintech missions where we've brought international fintech companies into the Northern Powerhouse and given them the opportunity to pitch their proposition to businesses in the region, and equally to be pitched back at by the organisations based in the UK who can explain some of the problems that they're trying to solve. We found that works very well. All of our events at the moment are online, so we've been able to attract a more national and international audience than we normally would do. And it's, anybody listening is really welcome to come to those events. It's a very inclusive community. It's a not-profit organisation. It's free to attend, so please feel free to join us. And I hope that during the course of today, I'll be able to help some of the people who've joined the session to understand a bit more about how they're their organisations might fit into the landscape in the Northern Powerhouse. The financial sector in the North is extremely significant. It's a really key sector. If you took the size of the financial economy on its own and compared it to the rest of Europe, it would be one of the top 10 countries in Europe, as when you look at it against the financial sector economies of other regions. So thank you for inviting me to take part in today, and back to you, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julian. Just to add to the financial strength of the Northern Powerhouse, obviously the government announced yesterday the location of the National Infrastructure Bank as moving to Leeds, which again strengthens the North's position as a leading financial centre. So thanks for that, Julian. Moving on, I would now like to introduce Dr. Jatinder Singh, Director of PhD Chamber of Commerce based in New Delhi, which is one of the premier chambers in India with a focus on supporting small and medium-sized businesses. Dr. Jatinder, over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for having me in this very important platform. And PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, it was established in 1905. It's a 116 years old chamber. And it's a proactive national apex chamber working at the grassroots level with strong national and international linkages. And the chamber acts as a catalyst in the promotion of industry, trade, and entrepreneurship. And through our research-based policy advocacy role, we positively impact the economic growth and development of the businesses locally as well as globally. And in fact, as a chamber, we have started a very big thrust on the fourth industrial revolution. And since most of the members are in category of SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, and we have felt that, big enterprises, the large OEMs, if they are becoming Industry 4.0 compliant, if they are becoming digitally, savvy, if there's a digital transformation happening at that, pace in big OEMs, the small, vendors, which are the SMEs, which are very important of the value chain, if they don't become themselves Industry 4.0 compliant using digital tools, then they'll be out of the business. So we are giving a very strong pitch for fourth industrial revolution. And this we are already witnessing across different industries, which is totally sector agnostic. And as we know that in Indian businesses, there's a lot of rapid advances in technologies, fundamentally changing the way how we used to do production, how we used to give our services. And also of late we have seen that the UK and India can build excellent foundations to ride the waves together of digital transformation in the fields of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other models of Industry 4.0 like additive manufacturing, cloud computing, cybersecurity, so on and so forth. And we see that there is a lot of greater access to India's world-class IT capabilities, and that is normally we have felt that our manufacturing index is now increasing because of the IT competitiveness that we are seeing with new digital technologies. And also we feel that digital approaches, it can also be developed and implemented to drive productivity gains in both existing and developing supply chains between UK and India businesses. And already we have seen that many members are also have our branches in UK also. We have seen that there's already a wide program of collaborative activity that is happening. And also, the study says that the UK is now also the single largest Western investor in India, with British businesses creating over close to 422,000 jobs. And India, on the other hand, is also the third largest source of FDI in the UK. And it has a record number of around 850 companies with combined revenues around 48 billion pounds and employing nearly 110,000 people in UK. So the benefits of both sides, it's definitely, unbeatable. It's very clear that a lot of new job opportunities we can see, economic growth, and also new avenues to co-create and co-innovate are felt between, both businesses. And also, India now also places the UK as one of the largest international partners in research and innovation. So what we feel that at the end of the day, it is the people who actually, make all these changes. It's the people who are responsible for economic growth. And for that, the skilled people or the human capital is very, very important. So what we have seen that now Indian companies, we have seen that they are now also leading force in upskilling in the UK. Our companies like Infosys, Wipro, TCS, they have invested heavily in coding academies, talent, and also they have made innovation hubs, and a lot of online skill platforms are also being developed by these companies. And by this is the major pathways by which the businesses are enabled, and we can see that expansion is occurring across the UK and India tech corridor, and a lot of collaboration are being done, and new opportunities are embedded locally, and this we can see that this is definitely a step towards future proofing the workforce. And also as India steers towards becoming one of the leading economies in the world, so we know that the rapid growth with new tech comes with its challenges, with a large diversity in our Indian ecosystem. With digitalization, a lot of challenges are also there. And we find that the right ways is to basically bring new skills and new type of companies into the market. And UK businesses can play a very, very important role in this. So I am sure that the ecosystem, such, the platforms like today that has been created by a very, very visionary sort of, you can say, people, I'm sure that this will definitely enable greater mobility and opportunities for UK companies also to set up in India and also contribute its quest in transforming the economy of both countries. In fact, our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, once said that the UK and India are an unbeatable combination. So we have seen that ties which were built in the past, they have grown stronger in the present, and there are definitely more opportunities to make these bonds even more robust in the future. So I'm sure that in this digital world and post-COVID, when a lot of new technologies have come, and as industries on both sides are becoming Industry 4.0 compliant with new AI tools, ML tools. So I firmly believe that there is no better time like now for the UK and India to join hands to change the narrative and set the new norms for a more strategic win-win collaborative model. So the point is that the idea of co-creation, definitely it will come out from different needs like disruptive innovation, wider access to data. Data is definitely the new fuel. New revenue streams need to be created. There has to be enhanced customer focus and of course deeper market access, and that can only happen if we're able to set the tone for co-creation in this digital era, so that both Indian and UK businesses can work strategically together to make sandboxes in some of the verticals like cybersecurity, fintech, different type of digital platforms. And I'm sure that since we have the best brains on the both sides, definitely we can do more co-innovation and co-create and can actually bring next breakthrough solutions. So thank you very much.
We are definitely stronger together, which is the biggest sort of message that I take from that ahead of us. So that's really good. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Satish Jha, Chairman of ECCO Electronics. Satish is an investor. Over to Satish.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good morning to folks in UK and good afternoon in India. I'm currently speaking from Boston, and it's about 4 a.m. and happy to be with you all. Thank you, Professor Oberoi and Sharon, for inviting me, and I'm glad to be here again. I was listening to Dr. Jatinder Singh. I think it's a co-everything time. Collaborate, co-create. Even the problems of the world, they come as COVID. So, you can't escape that. Even challenges are going to be thrown at us with a as a preface. That said, my role has been for the past decade more as an investor and a mentor to startups in technology. I don't look at businesses which can be developed leveraging what is there. I look at businesses which require thinking about the future. thinking about the solutions, the pains, the challenges that we are facing, and which can be handled. And I work with those who have come up with solutions in those areas. For instance, ecoelectronics was about designing something which can work in the remotest of villages. We designed something, a solar lamp, which was a multi-purpose lamp. It could be used in almost 360 degrees of situations that you can imagine where solar lamps could be helpful. I run EduFront Technologies, which basically looked at how to create a learning ecosystem, even in the remotest villages where there's no electricity, no Wi-Fi, no internet, no school building, no teachers. How do you go there and help them create learning ecosystem? But that's not just it. Do that at the apex of technological possibilities. So those are as good as something you will use in the finest, from resource point of view, most resource institutions or schools or where students come from affluent background, so to say. But you can also leverage the same technology cost effectively where people have, say, $200 per capita income. And there also, it can offer a similar quality environment. One of my investments is in the field of, say, medical devices. One of the materials is something which can reduce the time it takes to have implant in tooth instead of 2 meetings into just 1 meeting. And because it sets in very quickly, it doesn't require you to do a lot of things for someone to come for 2 sessions a month apart. So on and so forth. In other words, whatever we do is leveraging state-of-the-art technologies which are not available today in terms of application, and takes it to the next stage. Obviously, it takes from the forming of the company for companies to become business viable about 3 to 4 years' time. Could be sooner sometimes, but normally 3 years is something investors are very happy waiting for. And before they can go to IPO, it could be 4 or 5 years. Our expectation is that we can generate, say, about 5x over 5 years. We are not unhappy with it. 10x over 5 years is great. For instance, selection process is kind of a little challenging. For instance, in the past 5 years, I would say, I may have seen about several hundred presentations, and we may have funded something in a few dozens, and probably you add 10 times more that would have applied, 10 times the number of presentations I saw, and so on and so forth. So the selection process is there. Now, coming to the UK and India, I think they're historical allies. I think in some ways it's hard to find partners who are so historically aligned to each other, almost used to be kind of, as Americans would say, they joined at the hips in some ways. But the question is, how do we take it to the next stage? When in the inaugural session, my suggestion was, when India became independent in 1947, the state of Bihar was one of the best administered, most, you can say, within the Indian context, affluent state in that sense. Today, it's the absolute worst. It's gone down that path for the last 30 years. Instead of going north, it took the southward journey. Now, that requires a number of technologies which are being, we have to understand what they need and then to bring to that economy and build it up. Now, some of my Japanese friends, they're big investors, they say that we bet on India for the simple reason that it can only go forward. It's a great bustling economy. And in the next, for instance, 50 years, is going to be one of the 2 or 3 largest economies on the planet. So that if you bet long term, there is no place else to look for than India. If you invest in the US, you know you may get a certain return. If you invest in India, over a long-term investment is going to be great. From my point of view, investing in the UK and Leeds region is very, very interesting because investment requires a culture. More we get to know each other, more we understand each other's challenges. That's what allows us to see which solutions could be sought. So I think greater exchange between the 2 areas, and to find that we can express and understand and document and share and get people to feel the challenges each society or economy faces, that will generate solutions. Solutions are not just there on the shelf. They happen when we meet, we talk, we understand each other, and that exchange is very, very critical to any progress as such. Even in the US, the contribution of the diaspora from India, President Clinton said and President Obama said, they all talked about almost half the startups in Silicon Valley in the past 30 years had one Indian founder. And now we see that, I'm not talking executives. Executives get groomed as we, nurture them over a period of time. And we have seen in the 25 years of being in the US as the first-time immigrant, people have become chairmen and CEOs of largest corporations. So that's a different path. But before that, people began thinking, what are the challenges we face in our immediate environment? How do we address that? Which challenges can be scaled up? And that kind of dialogue, if that begins between Leeds and any part of India, and every part of India, that will be, I think, a great beginning, so to say. So, my interest is in education, healthcare, and any technology-based solution which has not been created yet. Of course, everything we do has to be based on technologies in place somewhere, but application is missing. And we imagine, we think, and we see where the solution is going to go to the next stage. So very happy to share that with anyone interested. And it's in dialogues that things come up. It's in dialogues that we find what is needed, what is valuable, what can be sustained, what can be scaled up, what is feasible, what's sustainable, and we come together. So I would request that let's have a conversation along those lines. And any trigger, any institutional mechanism created for that is going to contribute to a growth path which we can't readily even imagine. So thank you very much, and I look forward to addressing any questions that come up or any intervention that you may want me to get into. Thank you so much.
Very, very insightful. And a couple of things that I took from your presentation. The importance of strengthening cultural links and understanding helps to generate solutions, and that mutuality of interest. Really, really insightful, and thank you for that. We now move to the panel discussion section of the event, and where we get an opportunity to hear from some leading digital and technology companies that are based in India and in the Northern Powerhouse. First up, we've got Nick KAIMAKAMI, who's the Executive Vice President and Head of EMEA and the USA at Prime Focus Technologies. Now, Prime Focus Technologies is a global leader in technology, media, and the entertainment industry sector. They're headquartered in Mumbai and recently opened a state-of-the-art media centre in Leeds to deliver online services for Channel 4. Nick, can you tell us a bit more about Prime Focus Technologies and some of your new operations in the Northern Powerhouse?
Hi, thanks, Brian, for that lovely introduction, and good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Great honour to be part of this this group. Yes, I've just a bit of background about me. I've been a veteran in the industry, media and technology, for about 34 years. But I've been working for Indian companies for the last 15. And really, I was earlier in my career, I discovered the power of India and really the resources that we have. And for the last, I guess, 15 years, I've been working for system integrators, helping, the West effectively take advantage of all the goodness that India brings. So primarily using technology to drive business transformation. A very powerful thing, can easily be driven the wrong way, but it's if you do it correctly, you can do a lot of great things. With my experience, of spending so much time in India and understanding the culture, embracing that, what I've realized is that if you take the good things, and drive the strengths of both, and I've become very much if you like, a bridge between the East and the West, and that's what I've been bringing to many customers and many organizations that I've been sort of working with. And it's important to understand that cultural difference is important. And if once you understand it and embrace it, it can really make a massive difference. because there's certain things you can't change, and that's been my experience, but knowing how those, if you like, those challenges are and how to overcome them is more important, and focusing on the strengths you can really bring for both, and making sure the India side understands the West, and also the West understands India as well. The other thing as well is that, and this is, I found this very important, especially with startups and small organizations, because startups, very often they'll start in India and want to grow and coming to the West, go to the US, the UK, different markets. What they find is that the way they operate is typically they don't understand cultural awareness locally. And bringing that cultural awareness is fundamental to success. So a little bit about Prime Focus. We'll only use 2 slides just to give you a bit of view what we're doing. As Brian said, we're new to Leeds, and we've set up a very new state-of-the-art facility, and we built it during the pandemic, which was a bit of a struggle. But the focus for that is really to generate work and primarily initially serve Channel 4. What we do as an organization, we're a global powerhouse. And you've probably never heard of us, but if you've watched any Marvel or any futuristic blockbuster out there, all the special effects, and more films these days are made with special effects and graphics and animations. We work on pretty much most of those. So we do a lot of work primarily in the media entertainment, so film, television, and we work across the whole supply chain of how, from the time the content is being shot, planned, all the way to find its way into the big screen or the television or the device nowadays you're doing it. So the company's grown, headquartered out of Mumbai, of course, Bollywood. So a lot of great talent there. But we're serving clients across the world, from Bollywood all the way around the world, as well as here. And what we've found was that the media industry has not really, moved at the pace as other industries. We talked about the financial industry and some of the other industries. They've really taken advantage of the digital, fundamentals and the ability to move quicker and bring efficiencies and use technology in a better way. Media industry is a bit slower because it's been a much smaller industry and also driven by the way things were done historically. So the adoption of digital technologies has been slower. So about 12 years ago, we found a way to bring technology into the industry and actually take advantage of doing things in a more global, centralized, and more efficient way. So we provide technology to organizations in the media and entertainment industry. And by technology, we mean software as well as hardware, hosting, taking advantage of cloud and all of that kind of stuff to make the supply chain simplified and deliver the services that we also use the technology to deliver services that are used to prepare content, video, but all the way till it's actually shown on the device. So we've, the work that we're doing in the UK was to effectively take all of Channel 4's content from all the different, Channel 4, as you know, a government broadcaster. It's remit to create lots of jobs, not just in London, but to lots of little production houses and indies. And they work with over 300 such indies in the UK. And all of that content that they produce, we will take on board, bring it into Leeds. We will do all the content prep, quality checks and everything, and a lot of work that goes on is oversimplified, and then it will be sent over to effectively to the television screen so you guys can actually all see it. So that's an example of the kind of work, and we're using Channel 4 as if you like, our springboard into generating a lot of work and jobs in Leeds. We recognize that, the North is one area, tradition, a lot of films have been shot in Bradford and lots of other organizations. So, what we are doing and what I'm involved in is, and thanks to Jenny and some of the other members here, the community of interest is strong, and we're looking to bring together, talent from universities, the industry, as well as, what we're doing from a technology and the innovations that we bring to deliver more value to the community and bring more jobs outside of London, because historically everything has been done in London in this space, or Bollywood or Hollywood. So that's a bit about us, about Prime Focus Technologies, and I won't show any more of the slides. So thank you very much and look forward to interacting with you guys.
Nick, thank you so much for the presentation. Really enjoyed listening to that. Some fantastic opportunities going forward, and really pleased to have you in the North, global company, and it just highlights the fact that we're operating in this global village, and the strength and the opportunities that we've got across boundaries is terrific. So Thank you for that. Our next speaker is Viraj Kara, the co-founder of Open Brackets Learning and White Ladder Consultancy. Now, Viraj is recognised as one of the top behavioural skills trainers and leadership coaches in India. His clients include PepsiCo, Accenture, GSK, Nestle, and Sony, amongst others. So I'd now like to ask Viraj to tell us more. Over to you, Viraj.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for that introduction and some very, very good presentations that I've been listening into. Very informative. I've been making notes, and just for everybody else, I'm talking from the window which says HP. That's not my nickname. That's not my pseudonym. I just haven't been able to change my name. On the window, I'm called Viraj. That is Viraj. Somebody's been kind enough to put my credentials on the chat window. In case anyone wants to get in touch, you can find me there. In the meanwhile, let me make the best of the 5 minutes that I have been allotted. I think it was Winston Churchill who once said that, if I have to go on and speak for 3 hours, I need only about 3 minutes of preparation for that. But if I have to speak for 5 minutes, I need at least a day worth of preparation for that. I may have gotten the numbers wrong, but you get the drift of the story, which essentially means that, these 5 minutes, let me try and get the best out of them for all of us. So I often say that my story is that of the bottom to the top 20. And when I say that, I mean that I'm catering now to solving the problem that I faced for many, many years, which means that right now, to speak for 5 minutes, I'm challenged because usually my clients have me speak for 5 hours. And when you say 5 minutes, I'm like, no, give me more time. But even till about 20 years ago, if you were to meet me on a BA flight from Delhi to London, chances are that in that entire flight, even if you're very chatty, the only thing that you would find out about me is that I'm going to London. And that's pretty much it. Because I was an introvert of the first order. Back in school, academically not very bright, nothing to write home about as far as sports is concerned or extra co-curricular activities concerned. And from there to where I am today, ranked amongst the top 20 soft skills, behavioral skills trainers and coaches from India, I think I've learned something along the way, which is that if you get the right coach and the right trainer at the right time, chances are that your journey would be smoother and faster. And I think with that in mind, back in 2010 is when I co-founded my first company, which is called White Ladder. And we went on and provided learning and training solutions to corporate executives who were making their journey from junior or mid-management towards top management. And we realized in India, the biggest gap, the gap which I felt too, is the gap in confidence, communication, basic English language. And English still is and continues to be the business language in the country and for a large part of what the country works with. And there's a big gap there. And that's the gap that we were fulfilling at White Ladder. And we were doing a great job of it. We are rated amongst the top 20 experiential training companies in India. And then came COVID. And within the first week of the first lockdown, we at White Ladder lost about 200 days of confirmed training mandates. And that for us is huge. And that essentially happened because all this training and learning that we were doing for our clients was still happening on ground in a physical classroom. And then comes Open Brackets. That's the other company I co-founded. It was on the anvil for a long time, but we had put it on the back burner, essentially because as a soft skills and a behavioral skills trainer, I believe that you need a physical classroom to truly make your trainings and learnings experiential. And I was always wary of how one can achieve this online. But left with no choice, in the first week of lockdown, we put Open Brackets, which was so far on the back burner, into the forefront and utilized every platform that was, available, from Zoom to Microsoft Teams to Google Meetups to, everything that was literally out there, and started putting our programs on it. To came a time, and this is the only time I'm going to talk numbers. At Open Brackets, we never picked up the phone and called up anybody for business. This was all incoming business that we were serving. But what we ended up serving, and I was doing a number crunch so that I can share this with you here. we, in a span of 11 months, which is from March 2020 till now, February 2021, in these 11 months, we got 25, almost 26 actually, of our coaches to deliver 1,200 plus training days to close to 60,000 participants, unique participants, programs and courses in soft skills and behavioral skills. And what we finally ended the year at is about 2 times bigger than what we did in the previous 2 years put together. And this is when we did not pick up the phone and call up anybody. Essentially, the reason I'm telling you this story is because the skill gap in India is not huge when it comes to technology, when it comes to engineering, when it comes to management programs. It's in the application of it, in the storytelling of it, in the presentation of it, in the communication of it, in the etiquette of it. And that skill gap still, even after the 60,000 people we cater to, is not even a drop in the ocean. If you look at what some of the edX companies, edtech companies, and MOOCs are doing in India, you would see how big the opportunity is. And when I say that, I mean, essentially, if you look at the Baijus of the world, some of the 24 odd unicorns that we were talking about, which are based out of Bangalore, chances are some of them today are in the edtech space, are in the MOOC space. So look at Baijus, look at White Hat Junior, and also look at the figures for companies like LinkedIn Learning or EDX or Coursera, and what is being consumed in India, and you realize how big that opportunity is. Where do we lack? Where do I see partnership? By the way, my father studied at the Leeds University back in the 1980s, early 1980s. And I know and I remember that back then when people would ask him, so where is Leeds? He would say close to London, because that was the common point of reference. But I know, and you know that, the North has come into its own. But having said that, there's still a lot of visibility that, the North can get. Similarly, there's a large part of India which requires visibility, and it's all about the presentation of it. So I see a huge opportunity in university collaborations, in certifications, in getting our programs modulated such that if you are good in the North to take them to across the world, I see an opportunity to do that. And more than that, if you are interested in participating in the ed tech and the adult learning space in India, which is huge, then we are seeking partnerships at Open Brackets to make that happen. Of course, there are more possibilities and opportunities that one can speak about, but time is of essence. I hope I have been able to make a case for what it is that can potentially be worked upon. More when you have questions for me. In the meanwhile, Brian, I hand it over to you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
An excellent presentation, and clearly you've spent most of your career changing lives and making a difference, and it's a fantastic journey that you've been on, and I think you can be justifiably proud of how your business has scaled up and responded to the COVID challenges to change more lives and make an even greater difference. So well done. That was excellent. Thank you. Our next speaker is Zandra Moore, the Chief Executive and Joint Founder of Pain Intelligence. Pain Intelligence is a business intelligence and analytics software developer that's headquartered in Leeds. Zandra's got over 20 years experience of working in the tech sector and is on a mission to make the industry much more accessible to everybody, and is particularly proactive at promoting northern technology and women in technology. So without further ado, can I ask Sandra to tell us more?
Thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me, everybody, and absolutely delighted to be part of this very inspirational cohort of people today. My story has always been in Leeds, and I'm fortunate to have had a very inspirational role model in my mother, who is at the heart of the information superhighway, or the internet as we know it now, movement in Leeds. Is one of the first ISPs in the region, internet service providers. She was also involved in advanced infrastructure provisioning, which we all know to be the cloud today, with one of the independent data centres that we now have in Leeds being at the heart of part of our tech ecosystem. So my heart has been in this region, but I've built a business over the last 10 years that has very much been working with the Indian ecosystem. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that and what I'm doing to try and forge a business that is changing the face of AI, data and analytics in the way everybody can adopt that, not just here in the UK, but globally through working within the tech ecosystem. So Pan Intelligence is a data analytics software technology, but we uniquely go to market by working with SaaS vendors, software businesses who can rapidly accelerate their capabilities around AI, machine learning, data visualization and reporting by taking our technology and adopting that and using that within their platform to deliver that capability. Now, we've spent the last 10 years working a huge amount with the Indian tech ecosystem because it's a powerhouse for SaaS startups. In fact, in India in 2020, there was over 1,000 SaaS startups. 150 of those exceeded the $1 million mark. You have some amazing SaaS businesses such as Zoho, Freshworks, Druva, Icertis, two of which we work with, that have surpassed the $1 million ARR revenue mark. You are estimated in India to have a market worth 18 to 22 billion by 2022. That's nearly a 9% share of the global SaaS economy. So it's an incredibly exciting environment, and that's fueled by 100,000 plus SaaS developers. So for us, we see the Indian ecosystem around SaaS as being a powerhouse and engine room for the acceleration of SaaS globally, which has absolutely been kickstarted and fueled by COVID and the move to remote working. So Pan Intelligence is well served to enable the Indian ecosystem to adopt machine learning AI within their platforms rapidly so that they can serve a global market very quickly. And we spend a lot of our time working with development teams in India to do that. So I'm very much interested in how we can continue to strengthen those bridges, not only between the Northern Powerhouse, a region that my heart is very much in, and in the digital economy, which my heart is very much in. But I actually see some very powerful strengths between the digital ecosystem here in the Northern Powerhouse and the Indian ecosystem, especially around SaaS technologies. And if anybody would like to reach out, find a bit more about what we do and how we do that and who we're working with, please do connect to me. I'm fortunate to have an unusual name. So Zandra Moore, if you were to simply type it into LinkedIn, you'll find me. Please connect to me via that. And I'm happy to have an offline conversation, a bit more detail if that's useful. So thank you very much for your time today. That was all I was going to share at this point.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I must apologise. I think I introduced your company as Pain Intelligence as opposed to Pan Intelligence. So
you're not the first, Brian. Please don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine.
Hand on heart, I accept my apologies for that. And fascinating hearing about your company. And hopefully we'll have a chance to ask you some questions later. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd now like to move on to Peter Maud, who's the Chief Technology Officer at CRISP. CRISP's got an industry-leading technology dealing with online behaviour management, and Peter's responsible for the system architecture and the company's technology strategy. So, if I may, I'd like to hand over to Peter to tell us more.
Well, CRISP is headquartered in Leeds. We're established in 2005. Going through rapid growth at the minute. We're sort of growing 65% year on year. We have about 200 full-time risk intelligence experts employed in Leeds. Well, since the pandemic all over, not just in Leeds. And we work with hundreds of global brands, platforms and brands to protect their online spaces. That can range from anything from a large social network through to a fashion brand that has a presence on Facebook and Instagram. The way CRISP sees the world is that in the last few years, we've seen a huge rise in the use of social media by bad actors and agenda-driven interest groups, where they can really amplify those messages. Some of those groups are well organized, and some of them are loosely sort of affiliated with each other. This can be anything from extremists. We've seen a lot in the news recently about racist behavior on Premier League football clubs, terrorist behavior, anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists. And these are really damaging to all of us. And I think the platforms are struggling to manage that content. Brands are struggling to combat those narratives. And we've seen a real issue with anti-vaxxers in Europe, not so much in the UK, But these disinformation campaigns are sometimes really damaging to society. Where we help those brands and platforms is to spot those narratives, to give them early warning about those narratives, in a lot of cases to help them just remove it. So, for example, a brand that has racist, maybe homophobic type behavior on their pages, we will remove it. But in some cases, it's about identifying new types of threats to platforms. I'll give you an example of one of these. Unfortunately, the exchange of child sexual abuse material on platforms is a serious issue. But some of those groups, some of those well-organized groups, use coded language to hide their behavior. So they will use terminology that you wouldn't recognize if you saw it in the wild. So they're sort of hiding in plain sight. Our analysts, and this is how our unique combination of artificial intelligence and human intelligence, our analysts are constantly researching their behaviors, updating our tradecraft and terminologies to help spot those narratives or dangerous content, and try and keep on top of those evolving tactics. A lot of people ask us, why is your AI different from normal AI that I could train to detect this? And the main difference is that adversarial approach of those bad actors to combat the artificial intelligence that you're using to detect them. A great example I saw when people talk about self-driving cars, there was an exploit done to a Tesla self-driving car where they could drive the car off the road simply by putting 4 dots on the road. And so when people talk about often machines are better than people, they sometimes forget about the adversarial effect, how easy it might be to exploit that AI and effectively swerve it off the road, to use a real world example. But we see it in imagery where people, one pixel exploit embedded in an image and stop the AI detecting what it thinks it is. We've also seen a recent rise of deep fakes, and this evolution of bad actors against AI is something that we sit at the intersection of, helping detect the new techniques, constantly updating and constantly adapting our approaches to dealing with it. And we do that by analysing data from lots of digital sources. So think about every single mainstream platform, some of the evolving platforms, Gab, Parler, those types of places where we see a rise of far-right extremism, to uncover the relationships between the individuals and their groups, and to hopefully predict what impacts are coming as soon as possible, and then guaranteeing that to the enterprises, they will be the first to know. They might not be able to stop it, but they will be the first to know about those threats to the organisations. So that's our story. Proud to be from the North. Great to be working in such a vibrant economy. I'm really pleased to be here today. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Peter. Infosys is a global leader in next generation digital services with 250,000 employees worldwide. So, Raghu, could you tell us a little bit more about Infosys and your experiences of building an international business?
So, thanks for this opportunity, and I really should thank the High Commissioner from Bangalore, and I think he really sold the city much better than I could. And I have 3 portions to what I do in life. One is, of course, I'm a senior vice president and a very, I would say, a very old employee of Infosys, having seen it go from maybe less than for the last 25, 30 years. And the second is I also teach, and I teach artificial intelligence, and I teach some amount of algorithmic trading. So a couple of the presentations, especially the first one, were of interest to me. And the third and the fourth are I help some startups, and I work with a couple of PE firms. So let me just get your first question out of the way, because I wouldn't like to make this a spiel on Infosys, because we are a $12 billion entity, started somewhere in the 1980s. And one of our largest markets is UK, and we have close to about 30 to 40,000 employees, and we have centers all over UK. And let me, for those of you from India, UK has been particularly kind to Infosys. Obviously, while if we take a balance sheet, the Americas would possibly give us the maximum revenue of our 12 billion. I would say the welcome that we have got and the steady growth of business in UK, what we have learned over the last 30, 40 years is something phenomenal. So thank you to the UK government. Thank you to the British. The second portion which I would like to talk to you about is the startups. The startup ecosystem, and it's all okay for big companies to say we need to innovate. Usually what happens is there's always the dilemma that big companies have. Do you march to the drumbeat of a stock market when you're a $12 billion entity and you're a bellwether on the Bombay Stock Exchange, or you go ahead and take the risk to innovate? So we did the next best thing, that we set up an international fund and we look for innovative companies all over the world, which could mean UK, the US, which could mean India. And I spend a lot of my time with the innovation system or the venture capital funded system. Infosys has taken positions in a lot of these firms. The Bangalore has almost about 20 to 30,000 startup companies. And these startup companies are, people talked about the 12 unicorns, but the 12 unicorns are just one part of life. But then there are 30,000 or so minus the 12, which obviously are looking for funding, are looking for help in accessing the global markets, and are looking for a toehold in Europe. And I think there's no other better place than the north of England, from what I've seen, because I've been talking to people in the British High Commission, and I think there's a lot of stuff that can be done together. There are two or three things that stand out. The first, I think Mr. Conrad stole my words, but that's okay. He's just a fellow traveler. We have already started talking to a lot of the universities in UK. Mr. Conrad talked about, the entire education system. I'll go a step further. The pandemic has ensured that what was to be done 20 years later is going to be done now. But the problem is, while we can build technologically advanced systems for digital education, what is the pedagogy? How do you sort of evaluate them? What is the proctoring? There are a whole lot of questions. And I think that's where partnerships come in, because it's not only about, how do you host an event like this, or how do you host a class, but how do you sort of teach, how do you take the entire thing through a sort of digital system. In fact, I think over the last few months, I've had a couple of conversations with some of the British universities, which seem to have developed a great deal of expertise in this particular area. And I think that is one thing that education is going to be one big thing that one could look at. The second is going to be the entire aspect of artificial intelligence, especially cybersecurity. Obviously, for those of us who teach and those of us who are digital enthusiasts, the name Alan Turing is something that comes to mind. And Alan Turing was British. So if there is a lot of cybersecurity, if there is something that can be bought on cybersecurity, and if there is a whole lot of things that can be bought in, then I think that's where, I think the Indian startups and the British ecosystem could collaborate. I don't know if you have seen the latest articles. I think it came about 2 days back in the New York Times, where one of our neighbors with whom we don't have that great a relationship is trying to target our power systems. So let me switch over to power systems and the opportunities there. India had about an aggregate technical and commercial loss of around 33%. We went through our first phase of digitization somewhere around 2007, 2008, when I just returned from the US, and my chairman, Mr. Nandan Nivekeni, wrote out the report called IT in the Power Sector. We have brought it down considerably, but unfortunately, we have not been able to create a digital culture among the public utilities. So the government has now set up an infrastructure fund, and we are talking through some private equity firms, through CDC of UK, and to a number of UK innovators, as how do we build a distribution platform, a smart metering platform, a platform to connect metering, distribution, transmission, generation, and power trading. I know there's a lot of technology out there, and some CDC is involved. There's a lot of British involvement out there, and more than happy to speak to anybody who's interested in that. The last technology, last but not the least, there are many other technologies that one can talk about, which is sort of here and now, is the entire quantum computing. We must understand that quantum computing, the Chinese are far ahead. And well, that's one aspect of it, because that enters into the realm of defense. But then the fact is that there is a lot that one can do in collaborating in quantum computing. We have just touched the tip of the iceberg when some of the firms in India, some of the startups in India have gone into quantum security. But I'm sure that people would like to talk more on both sides of the ocean on quantum computing. So I've just rattled out to you a few technologies. As far as the entire Bangalore ecosystem is concerned, I think the High Commissioner named it very well. Funding is available. The technologies, the enthusiasm is there. In any technology, there is the architecture of the technology, there is the engineering of the technology, and there's the coding. As far as digital technology is concerned, the top end of the pyramid is the architecture, there's the engineering, and there's the coding. So what we are good at in doing in Bangalore is a lot of the engineering and coding, which is got out by all the big IT work that we do. And what possibly we could get in is a lot of the architecture. Of course, India is also going digital, so a lot of contribution could be brought into India, apart from using Britain as a springboard. I built the GST system, and at that point in time, we studied a lot about studied the British system quite a bit, the income tax system. A lot of our systems are based on British systems, so a lot of opportunity there for public governance systems to kick in. I can go on and on, but I see this as a wonderful opportunity. I've already started talking to people, and I think there's a lot of interest in the startup ecosystem to avail what the North of England offers us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raghu. Fascinating listening to you, particularly about the business startup ecosystem. And what sprung to mind is, for us to see more successful business startups, we need, motivated individuals, people with the ability and skills, people with the ideas, and people with the resources. And with those ingredients, we're likely to see a really dynamic business startup sector. Really fascinating to hear some of the developments, particularly around big data and quantum computing, where there'll be some significant market opportunities going forward. Our next speaker is Vishal Reddy, the Chief Exec and founder of Wowsome. Wowsome build immersive solutions using established extended reality platforms. The company's recently invested in Manchester. And Viraj, I'm going to ask you now just to tell us a little bit more about Wowsome. And I have to say, I think it's a fantastic company name. Over to you, Vishal.
That's right, Brian. Thank you very much. Yes, I was surprised when we got the trademark registered, because I thought it'll conflict with some English word or a combination of English words, but we passed through. Happy to be here. I was invited by DIT, the Department for International Trade, because our relationship defines how knowledge, capital, and skills were exchanged between the two regions. Yeah. I'm going to make this more about myself than the company, because I think I'm the connecting medium between the two countries rather than the entity. And the brief was extremely open. They said 5 to 7 minutes. I'm going to start the timer now. Yes. So I slept last evening inducing a lucid dream about the masterclass today. And I woke up with the deduction that the best value will be delivered to everyone by narrating a story without a plan. The story is not something I shared before, not even with myself. It is based on true events, if not entirely true, out of the respect of the people that have endured me during this journey. The story is about how I started my journey into this exciting new emerging field of immersive tech, the immersive sector, augmented reality. How did I stumble upon it? How did I start it? And how I evolved as a person by riding on the evolution curve of this sector, immersive tech. Well, I'll show you one of the illustrations that I found years ago when I was researching on this. This was early 2015 when I stumbled upon the Gartner's hype cycle for emerging technologies. And I think each one of us, especially in the tech field, usually find a technology and we enter the space at some point on this curve. The curve is simple. Every technology has an innovation trigger, followed by the peak of inflated expectations where everybody thinks the technology will change the world. And then you soon realize that there's a lot to do before it can have any impact on the world. So you have the trough of disillusionment, followed by some standardization, platforms and products coming into the market where the slope of enlightenment starts. So when I looked at this illustration in 2015, augmented reality made sense to me because, well, it is in the trough, followed by the slope. And I thought in about 5 years, I could earn millions, right? That's how the tech space was going. I also thought, having done luxury retail and agriculture and advertising before this, all the early stage technologies might require me to become a scientist, which I couldn't in such a short period of time. So I chose augmented reality as a segment to start a business in 2015. But soon I realized that I was in India and I wasn't really here on the curve after I formed a company, actually, that I was actually here, let's say Mumbai. And then a few weeks later, working out of Hyderabad, I thought I was even behind. So I quickly moved to Mumbai and started the business, to cut the long story short, and founded Wowsome in early 2015 with the intent to create value in the industry through immersive technologies like augmented reality. This, like I said, was 2015. This started with knocking on people's doors. People were extremely comfortable with what we're doing, with existing technologies and mediums that we're using to solve problems. Had the most difficult conversations. I was the absolute first in identifying unique business use cases that can be solved using immersion. And quickly, I was so involved in immersion, immersive technologies, that I came up with this positioning saying all pop culture demands immersion. In fact, remember, I said immersion is the panacea for all problems, because if you're involved in what we're doing, then we're better at what we're doing, and we're going to make a world a better place. Immersion is basically the need to be completely involved in something by making experiences realistic, engaging, and satisfying on all our devices. And the best immersive experiences are achieved using extended reality technologies. So I formed a team that was who are experts in XR technologies. XR is an umbrella term that is used to combine AR, when you add digital information on a physical object, VR, when you make digital twins of everything that is physical in our real world, and MR, where digital twins are placed in physical environment for visualization. Of course, we had a USP. Pretty much all the IP that I've created is in AI, because AI is what ensures that these experiences are hyper-personalized to the audiences. Through this approach, you may say I've got this very clear definition about 2017, following which 2018 and 2019, I could claim that I was an authority in the space with this whole powerhouse excessive knowledge with all the AR established platforms like PTC's Vuforia engine, the AR Kit, AR Core, hardware manufacturers like RealWear, Microsoft makes hardware and software. We use their products to create value and deliver solutions in the market. While we did this, we created our own platform with the cold solution set. These are partner platforms that we used extensively, and we had extended or enhanced versions of partner platforms that fill in the gaps that they couldn't. And we, of course, have our own, our own products, which would fill in gaps that were created by changes in the market because of COVID and several other digital transformation initiatives that were triggered before. Well, now, obviously, having started the company in a bootstrap mode, I was looking for investments, and I very quickly realized that investors don't really care about being a reseller of partner products. They care about a platform that you have for yourself, your own IP, yes, but what they really, really care about are products, right? SaaS products, yeah, that were in our pipeline. With this intelligence, around this time, when I could claim as the authority in the industry, I happened to meet DIT, Department for International Trade. It was inadvertent, they had approached us, and it quickly went into me visiting the UK just because of the quality of the invitation. And like every tourist, I thought, hey, the opportunity to go to London, but they ensured that my trip started with somewhere in the north, somewhere upon Newcastle, or Newcastle upon River Tyne, followed with Manchester, into Cardiff in the west, Reading, Brighton, Bristol, Bath, etc. And during this journey, I've met many people, created networks, saw some core R&D work at all the universities in these regions. And ultimately, these engagements resulted in me being most invited by these folks in University of Salford. Now, Insuk, Robin, and a bunch of young boys in Manchester, they've been working on some research on a platform called Media Framework that does meta tagging for content that is essential for creating immersive experiences. And they invited me to join their team. And it was just their product, their idea, their intelligence. I was just help them to consolidate into a feasible business plan. And this was a perfect example of exchange between both the regions, India and UK, with my skill going into the UK, the product, of course, coming back to India and the rest of the world, investments, my capital going into the UK, and further partners in the UK like GC, Business Growth Hub, Innovate UK Network, because this product has won 2 grants that help finish the R&D and then go into product development and further, right? So this was the story from me graduating from gaining my intelligence and network in India in the space of immersive sector, and then meeting a very inviting team in the UK and forming an entirely independent company in the UK focused on this product called IO Live. I will end my conversation by quickly giving you a snippet into what IO Live is. IO Live has won 2 Innovate UK grants in the last 6 months, finished its R&D phase, and also has recently, 2 weeks ago, won or acquired its primary backer for funding. And the rest of the funds is going to be filled in by the GC Business Growth Hub. So if anybody else is interested, it'll be fastest to approach them. We already listed on the side to fill up about 20% of gap. I've held it to ensure that even the funding partners are as diverse as possible. IO Live, an innovative service platform to stream broadcast quality shows with ease and remotely as a consequence of the disruption caused by the global pandemic. It's been technologically and functionally demonstrated in the relevant environment with GMCA United We Stream Manchester. Here's a quick video on what IO Live is, about the last 1 minute.
Wowsome XR is building IO Live. IO Live brings 360-degree UX innovation to on-site for performers, remote production sites for producers, and to the audience. IO Live is a platform that moves beyond live streaming and enables distributed collaborative production to deliver augmented live stream content.
The audio is audible.
IO Live provides foolproof DIY multicam setup with remote technical support. Now, performers and amateur streamers can live cast with professional quality. Our producer interface allows a remote production team to direct the show, monitoring live feeds, mixing between cameras, and overlaying additional content. For every stream IO Live hosts, IO Live provides an interactive microsite where you can engage with your audience, providing viewers with supplementary content to enhance the viewing experience along with curated social media feeds and live chat. IO Live adds personalization capacity through systematic meta-tagging of content. This helps performers better communicate with producers and find marketing money with autonomy.
Thank you. That's it, Brian. I think I took a lot of time, consequence of not planning on the storytelling. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Vishal. Fascinating product, IO Live, and a great example of sort of public-private sector and the education sector working together to commercialise a fantastic product. And fascinating. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharon Matthew, lead partnerships at Diwali Rural Information Systems. Shobit helps social purpose organisations in their digital transformation journey, and he's got a passion for technology for the greater good.
Yeah. Hi, Brian. Thanks a lot. And thanks, everyone. Great to be in the company of the good speakers here. And in fact, Vishal spoke very well in the so I'm in tech space, just like Vishal has been, and I'm fortunate that the speaker before Vishal is someone from a company which we have admired as an organization. Raghu was there from Infosys, and I'm from Dhwani. Dhwani is I represent Dhwani as their head for partnerships in India and abroad. And Dhwani, I've been in my, and I would just want to thank Professor Rupinder Oberoi also. She was kind enough to also invite us to this. So basically, Dhwani Rural Information Systems, we are basically we are a startup based out of India, 6 years old, building tech solutions and data analytics solutions for social sector organizations specifically. So those of you who are aware of Infosys, just like what Infosys is for the corporates in terms of IT consulting, IT services, and data analytics and technology. Similarly, Dhwani is the same for social sector organization, the NGOs, the donors, the academic research organizations, and organizations of similar nature. So I take care of basically what, in terms of my journey, I come from IT background, and then we are a young team here and of around 70 people who specialize working in social sector, field level contexts, and basically trying to understand the problem statements of the research programs or the research projects which academic institutions take up in developing economies. So like we work with Chicago, University of Chicago, we work with projects from Harvard, we work on projects from other global universities for their research in India, where they need tech support and data analytics support. And so that is the space in which we work. And I think, I can share my screen just to help you understand. So basically what we do, we started as a research project while we were ourselves in our own masters, pursuing masters in social sector from India. And what we realized in India's context was that there are a lot of tech solutions available for the mainstream organizations, for the mainstream businesses. But there are no tech solutions and data analytics services available for the non-profit sector, which is often marginalized, and there are a lot of fund crunch issues and understanding gaps related to technology. That is where Dhwani pitched in with the idea that, hey, what if we build IT solutions for social sector with a dedicated focus to understand the field level scenarios and then build some tailor-made solutions around that. That's where we started. And the idea was simply to talk to the NGOs, talk to the international donors, talk to the research organizations, understand their problem statements. Hey, that if you are doing a large scale program, say a development intervention across a province in, say, abroad or in India in specific state, and it's a healthcare program, and you want to track the whole data flow of that, and you want real-time analytics of it. A mainstream business would have it very easy. They would have off-the-shelf platforms available for them. But when you talk to an NGO, when you talk to a research organization, when you talk to an academic institution, they often struggle that I have loads of data, but I have not been able to manage it. And that is where and the problem here was not software, that there are no people to build software. No, there are enough people who can build softwares, who can build technology. But the problem to marry technology along with the understanding of context, the social sector context, the field level context, that if there is an education program being rolled out across India and there are last mile deliveries of certain services to be done to the teachers in public schools in remote villages of India, what are the technology solutions which can be delivered there? If there are large-scale public health programs being done, if there has to be a reporting from the field on a real-time basis, right from the bottom till the top, how do we streamline the whole process onto a tech platform? That is where our brains started working, and that is where we started working on very specific problem statements faced by the organizations, working with the government, working with the academic institutions, working with the international donors. So that's how we started. And today we are a team of around 70 people. We provide 3-4 types of services to social sector organizations. We work with all types of social sector organizations, governments, in India, government being the largest social sector or the welfare organization, you may say. Then we work with the NGOs, we work with the foundations, we work with academic institutions across all thematic areas, projects on all thematic areas, be it education, livelihoods, water, agriculture, governance. And when we work on those, these are the specific areas where we try to contribute through our understanding and skill set. That we first try to understand the problem statements, and then we try to understand the processes which are being attempted to be digitized. Or there are a lot of data collection programs happening, but there are no systems to digitize those. So for that, we work with organizations like these. Some of these are global in nature. If you see the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, or the Deloitte and EY and PwCs, all of these organizations work on large-scale data collection in India and globally, where they need the tech platforms for their requirements, for their programs. That is where we provide them support to, say, either build custom solutions, which are largely comprising of the apps, MIS, and dashboards, but very much tailor-made for the requirements, and aligning them with the global frameworks for monitoring and evaluation, the SDG frameworks, the IRIS frameworks, the PPI frameworks, so that all the data which is raw in beginning can be aligned to a global monitoring framework. That is one. Now, based on those learnings, just like any typical journey from a services-based software company to a product-based software company, we learned our lessons and we realized that given the budget and time constraints which academic institutions, which research institutions face, there is a need to standardize certain solutions. So we created a portfolio of off-the-shelf platforms for data collection. Now, this is something which is being used by some of our clients based out of UK, and that's where I'm trying to marry how we are also looking for partnerships in UK, that there are organizations like DFID, and there are organizations and non-profits like Oxfam and other organizations based out of UK working in India, and they want to use tech platforms for their different problem statements. And that is where we are interested to partner with them for such platforms, which can help them for data collection of their grants, regarding the grants which are being rolled out in India or abroad, or to help them with a high-level platform at the head office level, which can help them aggregate all the data sets from the field and in between till a top CXO level data. So these platforms which we have allow the organizations to readily deploy their data collection systems and to report back on a real-time basis and do the slicing and dicing of data and add the layer of analytics on top of it. And then there are innovative solutions like WhatsApp chatbots, which we provide for beneficiary engagement. So a lot of these systems are very mainstream in the business environment. But if you talk to NGOs, if you talk to the research organizations, they are not using it very aggressively. And that is where we want to engage. And this is where it would be interesting to understand how, and as a follow-up discussion, that which are the research organizations or social sector organizations in UK who are already working at a scale, and where we can provide them any support in terms of data analytics, in terms of their own, I would say, tech requirements. And main part is to understand what is the domain, health, education, agriculture, based on which we can bring our own expertise of building solutions from scratch, understanding the field level scenarios, and then understanding their problem statements and marrying both of them. So this is how we operate. And it's a very consultative approach in which we have been talking to a lot of our clients. And particularly talking about UK, we have been fortunate enough to have our clientele, which is based out of UK and other parts of Europe and also US, specifically working on government and social sector projects. So we have worked on one of the largest capacity building program in India with Google, which involved basically providing digital literacy to the women in villages. So this was spread across this is a pan-India program spread across villages, more than 5 lakh villages in India, where the women in those villages were trained to use a smartphone in first place. That's the basic level where the struggle is still in India. Now, to make people aware of technology in first place, and then to make them use technology, is where we try to bring our services. That technology has to be understood by someone as layman, as an elementary educated person. Just like WhatsApp can be used by anyone who can have a basic literacy. So that is the role of technology we envision in social sector, and that is how we try to support organizations. Yeah, so that's what I would want to end here.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I wish we'd got more time. Can I just take the opportunity to thank you for your presentation and some fascinating background there. So really appreciate that. Thank you. There is one other person I'd like to introduce colleagues to say a few words, and that's Stuart Clark. Stuart Clark is the director of the Leeds Digital Festival. So if I could just ask Stuart to say a few words, and then we'll go to the Q&A session. Over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thanks. So Stuart Clark. I do a number of things in Leeds. Just to give you some background, so I run my own marketing and PR consultancy working with tech firms, and I also work with a number of startups as a non-exec director or an advisor, and there's startups across everything from edtech to adtech and even a dating app. And just to let you know about the Leeds Digital Festival, a bunch of us got together at the end of 2015 to talk about, what can we do for the regional tech sector? And we had two things in mind. One was about celebration, making a bit more noise, highlighting some of the real innovation that's going on in the region, and also the collaboration. How do we bring people together? So we came up with the idea of a digital festival, not a new idea. And what we've done since our first event in 2016, where we had 56 events, we've grown year on year every time. And last year we were just about to announce 250 physical events, and we all know what happened last March and April. So we've turned it round, and we turned that 250 physical into 134 virtual events in a couple of weeks in April. Then in September, we had another festival where we had 294 virtual events. And what we found last year with COVID, it really pushed our reach out across the world. And we had attendees from over 60 countries. And the thing about the festival, right from the start, we've made it an open platform event. So we don't put the events on ourselves. We just invite everybody to come in and put their own events on. And we'll work with them, and we'll obviously promote the entire festival and individual events. We'll find people speakers, we'll find people partners to put the events on. And I think because of that open platform aspect, and because it's free to put an event on, there are no costs to organisers. I think that's the reason why it's grown and grown, because it belongs to everybody. So whether you're a small startup in Leeds, whether you're an international company anywhere in the world, you can take part in the festival. we've always had that international element. We've had delegations from all over the world every year. And as I mentioned, last year on the virtual world, it really pushed it out. We'd love more attendees and event organisers from India. And it's been great to see over the last few years how the North and the Leeds City region has grown those links with Indian companies. So, if you're interested in taking part in the festival, please get in touch. I'll share my details on the chat, and I'm sure Jenny and everybody else will share those. And but just great to get more people involved from outside of the UK.
That's great, Stuart. Thank you very much. Very much looking forward to the digital festival. There's been a lot of interest so far, so it's great to hear more about it. Thank you very much, Stuart. Now, if you've got any questions, if you can post them in the chat, I'm happy to direct questions at the speakers. If not, then I'll move to the closing of the event. Neelam.
Wonderful presentations. Thanks to actually NAP for organizing this session. They're very much actually useful. And my question to Mr. Subhojit. Subhojit, we have a division, we have a division called Client Engagement Division. We enable clients. Any actually interest you have for actually having alliance with company. I belong to a company called Vedavak Systems Limited. Hyderabad, we are based on Vice President. So any opportunity is there for us to have actually a partnership so that we can do the marketing for your line of product lines actually. This is what is my request. Yeah, just now there was a presenter, Mr. Subhojit. So this is my request to Mr. Subhojit. As per his convenience, he can respond. I've given my email ID also. And thanks to you all for your valuable time, please. Thanks. Wonderful presentations. Keep it up. Thank you, Neelam. We'll make sure that Sobit's contact details are available to you, so hopefully we can answer your question offline. Any more questions or comments or observations before I bring the session to a close? I'm conscious of the fact we've got about 13 minutes left. I'll just move to the closing remarks. The first thing I'd like to do, just echoing what Neelam said, is actually thank all our presenters for taking time to attend the mission. We've heard some fantastic speakers and some great presentations, and I'd like to thank all the speakers and all the attendees and all the key partners. There's one or two people I'd like to mention specifically. Professor Rupinder Oberoi, the founder of the Centre for Innovation and Social at the University of Delhi, for all the help and support that's been provided. In addition, I'd like to also thank Sharon Matthew for all the hard work that she's put in, the many hours of work that she's put in to bring this trade mission together. And I would just like to ask Sharon to say a few words to close the event. Sharon, if you'll be so kind.
Thank you, Brian. I mean, that was another fantastic masterclass. And I just would like to say before I thank everybody that all the content, all the presentations will be made available. If you have registered and if you do get in touch with us, we will make sure that everybody has everybody's contact details, because the whole point of the week was actually how much can we connect people, how can we facilitate conversations, how can we facilitate business opportunities. So we will ensure that that is done. So my personal thank you to you, Brian, and I can't forget Jenny as well. I mean, Jenny has worked with myself and Daniela and Rupinder shoulder to shoulder. So thank you, Brian, and thank you to the Leeds City Region Partnerships. Thank you also, Dr. Jatinder. I mean, bringing on the Indian participants, because the event has been truly bilateral in nature. The panel speakers have been from India and from the Northern Powerhouse. The delegates have also been from India. So we thank you sincerely, Dr. Jatinder for doing that. Our speakers were phenomenal. In that Satish was fantastic. Thank you for joining us from Boston. Thank you for getting up at 4 a.m. Well, 3 a.m. probably to get ready, and then 4 a.m. we noticed that you were in a suit, so thank you for that too. Thank you, Jeremy Pilmore-Bedford, for your presentation as well. Always delighted to see that the British Deputy High Commissioner of Bangalore is supporting us. Sherin, thank you for a fantastic presentation. Julian, I know very well, thank you so much. Nick, I need to get to know you. That was a fantastic presentation as well. Sandra, I always like your presentations. I'm always amazed. Thank you for that. Viraji, thank you so much for joining us. Nigel, thank you so much. Raghuji as well. Shobitji, we made it in the end. So thank you. And thank you, Rubinderji, for making sure that we had Shobitji's content. Peter, thank you so much. And Stuart, again, a very, very close friend. Thank you so much for making this presentation what it is. Brian, over to you. I don't think I've forgotten anybody because it's looking at little space. Brilliant, yeah. But actually, you know, the messages that just so that you know, the messages that I'm getting from people, they've absolutely been blown away. I think when we first started doing this, people thought 2 hours, that's too long. And it just goes to show that even 2 hours isn't enough, because we wanted to have some breakout conversations. But I think, Jenny, that's this is the start of something big. We can maybe pick this up offline and see what we can do as a follow-up.
That's great. Thanks, Sharon. And I will ask Jenny to provide her contact details. So if you want any more information, we can connect people together and, you know, build on the networking. As Sharon said, it's been a terrific event, and there's so much common interest. And I think, as we said at the beginning, you know, we are stronger together. There's some fantastic opportunities to see a lot more entrepreneurship, a lot more innovation, a lot more creativity to really, you know, regenerate our economies, to create jobs, to change lives, and to make a difference. And I think all our speakers have provided some fantastic insight into some of the social and economic benefits that technology can bring. And we've all been through some challenging times recently with the pandemic, and I do think that, you know, there's hope for some real optimism going forward, just in terms of, you know, the economy rebounding and technology leading the way, and the levels of innovation and the strength of partnership is something that I think, you know, we can all be proud of. And I'd like to thank everybody for the contribution this morning.
I did miss Vishal Reddy. So Vishal, I thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's anybody else we've missed, please accept our apologies and grateful thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for all your contributions. It's been an excellent event. Thank you very much. Goodbye.